Hello. Today we're discussing two parshayot at the same time because it's not a leap year. Tazria Metzora, because normally in the leap year we read them separately, but since this year we read them together. Well, what this is all about? The Parshat Tazria continues the discussion of the laws of Tumah, Torah, which is ritual impurity, and purity and purification. Basically what is ritual impurity is when a person touches a dead body of another human being, or touches anything associated with death, or a dead animal, and by doing that, the person basically makes himself or herself spiritually impure, and this is a condition which these two parshayot basically discussing. The Tazria discussing what is the ritual impurity, and the Metzora is how to rectify that, how to purify yourself. So the Parshat Tazria continues the discussion with the laws of Tumah, Torah, which is ritual impurity. And it starts with the situation when a woman giving birth should undergo a process of purification after that, which includes immersing herself in the mikvah, which is a specially naturally gathered pool of water, and must bring offerings to the holy temple. A male infant is to be circumcised on the 8th day of life. That's what this parsha starts from. Then it discusses the questions of tzara, which means translated as leprosy. It's a spiritual plague, basically. It's a spiritual disease which can also afflict not only a person but the garments or the clothes. And what it basically is saying that is if a white or pink patches appear on the person's skin, dark red or dark green on the garments, a coin is called upon, we call it coin, and he evaluates those patches on the human skin or on the clothes or on the house. Actually, it can take place as well, and he, subject to his judgment, evaluating all the different signs which are described in different details, in a very precise details in the parsha, subject to whether it increases in size or decreases of the afflicted area. He may quarantine the person for 7 days, or the clothes, and he can pronounce the person tamei, which is impure, or tahor, pure. A person afflicted with tzarat must dwell alone outside of the camp or city until he is or she is healed. The afflicted area of clothes, of a garment, is removed, and if tzara spreads or occurs again, the entire garment must be burned. And the same thing actually applies to a house. If green or red patches appear on the plaster of the house, inside or outside, Cohen evaluates it and then quarantines the house for 7 days. So all the utensils must be taken out before the Cohen actually comes over. And then if after 7 days he reevaluates the house, and if it spreads, becomes bigger, then the repairs must take place and all of this must be removed. And eventually, if it doesn't stop reappearing, if it reappears again and keeps growing, in ultimate case, the house must be demolished. And why is that? And why we don't have it today, as a matter of fact? The reason is that at the time when what we're talking about, when the Jews were in the desert, and then at the time of when the temples were there, the level of spirituality was much higher. The people had much higher level of spirituality, and obviously the manifestation of their sins was spiritually much stronger. So they could see the physical consequences of their spiritual sins. What are we talking about? What sins can manifest themselves in tzara? Well, the first one and the most important one is Lushan Hora, gossip. And there are 6 others: murder, vain oath, meaning in the court, if you're lying under oath, and you becoming a false witness, that can create tzara. Sexual immorality, arrogance or pride, stealing, theft, and strangely, last but not least, stinginess of the person. Now, in our days, we cannot see manifestations, physical manifestations of those sins on us, on our clothes, on our houses. But they do exist. And the reason why we cannot see them, because if you compare that to the voltage, in the days of the temples and the tabernacle in the desert, the power of spirituality amongst people was very, very high. It's like high voltage. And it was capable to manifest itself. If the person sinned, everybody could see. It was a public display of his sins. So comparing to the voltage, if you touch 360 volts or 220 volts, it will give you a physical jolt. You will really feel it. Today, the voltage came down. The spiritual power which we possess as people, as spiritual people, is much lower, considerably lower. And that's why we don't experience it. Because if you take few millivolts and you touch them, 3 volts even, you will not feel any physical pain or discomfort. And this is what it's all about. Now, switching to the second part of today's portion, Metzora, the parsha starts with the sign of Metzora, which means translated as a leper, right? Now, let's understand once and for all that tzara or Metzora is not a physical skin disease, like which you go to the dermatologist with this. No. It's a spiritual it's a manifestation of spiritual sins. And this is what we're talking about. Today, we cannot see that, as I just explained the reasons. So Metzora in this week reading begins with detailing how to recover from it, from Metzora, that purification by the Kohen, by the priest, must take place. And with a special procedure involving 2 birds, spring water, and an earthen vessel, and a piece of cedar wood, and a scarlet thread of red scarlet thread, and a bundle of hyssop. And all of this is mixed together, and by using this, you can purify yourself or your clothes or the house. The process of purification can last as long as 19 days. And the Kohen determines basically if the house has been purified or whether ultimately it must be demolished. The Tazria Metzora finishes with the description of the ritual impurity, which is also can take place through the seminal discharge of a man, or menstruation, or other discharge of blood in a woman, and it's purified through immersion in a mikvah. Now, let's look at what this is all about. It's very hard for us to understand all of this because we never experienced this. That's number one. And number two, we don't have the temple, so our level of spirituality and understanding of all of this is relatively poor, let's face it. So, tuma, or ritual impurity, is a spiritual status that impacts a person's involvement in various areas of Jewish life. It's widely misunderstood and often mistranslated as unclean. Tuma is a deficit of spiritual power of sorts, and generally associated with death or contact with the other spiritual impure objects or people. On the face of it, it seems very odd that the Torah would ascribe the spiritual deficit to childbirth. You know, why a woman who brought a new life to this world must purify herself. It's a natural and very beautiful, especially beautiful event, bringing new life to this world. So the law is that the mother is impure for only 7 days when a male child is born, and 14 days when a female child is born. It seems very perplexing. So let's try to understand this. The Kotzker Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kotsk, who lived in the 18th century, explained it very interesting. Contrary to common belief, Tumah is not an opposite side of Kiddusha, sanctity of holiness. No, it's not. Let's try to understand this. Kiddusha is a spiritual force that is present when a man is most similar to God, when he is a potential creator. Tumah represents a vacuum that is created when this potential force, spiritual force, is removed. When alive, a human being is holy. He is a powerhouse of creative potential. And when he dies, that potential goes away. So, Tumah sets in. A human corpse, in fact, acquires the highest degree of Tumah, and precisely because of the void is so great, because life force is gone. And this is why Kahanim cannot approach a dead body, cannot participate in the funeral under the same roof. So, a woman during pregnancy is most similar to God, and in sense it is as if it's at the peak of its sanctity, of her sanctity. She is not only a potential creator, she is actually a creator in literal, in physical sense of the word as well. So once the child is born, however, the woman returns to being a regular human being. And that sudden absence of her initially creative potential, which wasn't there for 9 months when she was pregnant, creates a void. And that void is filled with Tumah. With this insight, Rabbi Chaim ibn Attar, who lived in the 17th century, I think, end of 17th, beginning of 18th century, and he was the author of the Och HaChaim, explains that the longer period of impurity after birth of a girl is because when a woman is pregnant with a girl is an emerging creator as well. So her degree of sanctity is at all times high. It's much higher even when the woman pregnant with a boy. So the void or tuma created when she is no longer pregnant, when the baby is delivered, is proportionally larger. And the vacuum created from after the birth of the girl is double of what the vacuum created is when a boy was born. So the laws of Tumah teach us that in important lessons about our sanctity. There is a well-known metaphor that the life of a Jew is like going up and down of the escalator. To retain our sanctity, we must always strive to fulfill more mitzvot and seize every opportunity for spiritual growth. Neglecting such occasions may involve more than just missing an opportunity. It may be an invitation to spiritual decline. And this is what the Torah teaches us in this parshayot, in Tazria Metzora, that whenever we decline spiritually, Tumah sets in. For women, it's through pregnancy when they deliver the baby, so they must purify themselves and ask, and go through the sacrifices, to submit sacrifices in the temple time, or extra prayers after the certain time is passed. And this is what this is all about. Understanding how spiritually high we actually are. Thank you very much. I will see you next time.